Have you ever felt like you're watching the world from behind a glass wall, close enough to see, too distant to join? Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt an overwhelming sense of hollowness, as if everyone was speaking a language you once understood but have long forgotten? If so, you're not broken. You're not antisocial. You're simply awake in a world that rewards sleepwalkers. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't despise people, he despised illusions. The illusion that belonging is virtue, that being liked is meaningful, that noise is connection. He saw the truth few dare to name, that the more clearly you understand life, the less sense society makes. The intelligent mind does not isolate itself because it hates others. It withdraws because it can no longer lie to itself. This isn't about elitism, it's about clarity. It's about standing still in a stampede and realizing no one knows where they're going. And when you no longer chase what everyone else chases, you will be called many things: cold, distant, arrogant. But none of that matters, because something else begins to grow in the silence you create, something the world cannot give you: inner sovereignty. In a world obsessed with communication, most conversations are void of real meaning. Beneath the smiles, handshakes, and rehearsed laughter lies a desperate attempt to belong, an effort that feels exhausting to the intelligent mind. It's not that the intelligent dislike people, it's that they see through the theater. They see the invisible contracts beneath every word, the subtle demands behind every smile, and the unspoken rules that govern social exchanges. To fit in, one must wear a mask. But once you learn to see masks, it's impossible to unsee them. The intelligent person grows weary of pretending. They find no satisfaction in casual chit-chat about weather, gossip, or weekend plans. They can't help but sense the performance in small talk, the fear of silence dressed in words. What's the purpose of speaking, they ask, if nothing true is said? Social rituals are often just maintenance of appearances. There is no mutual revelation, only mutual concealment. People speak to avoid vulnerability, not to share it. To someone who craves substance, this is unbearable. They start to withdraw, not out of pride, but out of exhaustion. They realize that most social contact is a transaction. You offer attention, politeness, even bits of your identity in exchange for being accepted. But what if you no longer seek the currency of acceptance? Then the game becomes irrelevant. And that's the shift. Once you see through the masquerade, you're no longer willing to dance for crumbs of approval. You begin to protect your time, your thoughts, your silence. You stop giving energy to conversations that go nowhere, and that, to the social world, is a threat. Because nothing is more unsettling than someone who sees the game but refuses to play. 2, we live in an age where silence is suspicious and noise is celebrated. Social media, talk shows, group chats. There is always something to scroll, something to hear, something to respond to. But the intelligent mind is allergic to this constant buzz, not because it is fragile, but because it is tuned to a different frequency: introspection. Thinking deeply is a quiet act. It requires space, mental and emotional. But the modern world offers none. It floods every still moment with sound, Evie, every pause with distraction, and in that flood, true thought drowns. Intelligent people notice this early. They sense how attention is being hijacked. They grow uneasy in crowded rooms where opinions echo endlessly, but understanding is scarce. They turn down the volume not to escape others, but to preserve themselves. When everyone is speaking, no one is listening. When everyone is reacting, no one is thinking. The intelligent do not withdraw because they think they are better, but because I want to hear something real, and that rarely happens in groups. Instead of participating in empty dialogues, they opt for inner monologues. They read, reflect, analyze. They watch the world from a quiet distance, not with disdain, but with curiosity. They seek clarity, not applause. They ask questions no one dares to voice in public, and they entertain answers that society finds uncomfortable. Noise sells simplicity. Thought reveals complexity. The intelligent choose the latter, knowing. It often comes at the cost of social inclusion, but to them that's a price worth paying. 3. The first time solitude arrives, it does so with a cold edge. It feels like abandonment. But for the intelligent, that feeling soon gives way to something else: recognition. Solitude, they realize, isn't a void. It's a signal. It's the mind pulling back from the superficial. It's the soul refusing to keep playing a role that no longer fits. The intelligent do not fear being alone because they understand that solitude is not the same as isolation. One is chosen, the other imposed. And when solitude is chosen, it becomes a sanctuary. Here there is no need to perform, no obligation to smile on cue, no requirement to dilute thoughts to make them palatable. In solitude, the intelligent person can finally breathe. Society warns us against being alone, as if solitude is a failure. But what if it's success? What if stepping back is not withdrawal, but graduation? For the intelligent, solitude is not a punishment. It's where the mind sharpens and the spirit realigns. It's where distractions fall away and clarity rises. It's where the self is no longer buried beneath noise, but discovered in stillness. In solitude, the intelligent remember who they are, and from that place they no longer beg for entrance into rooms they never belonged in. Solitude is often misunderstood because people have only seen it as punishment. But for the intelligent, it becomes as revelation. When distractions fall silent, when the crowd recedes, a strange moment arises, a confrontation with the self. And this confrontation, while painful, is necessary. Most people avoid themselves their entire lives. They drown out the silence so they never have to hear what echoes in it. But the intelligent don't run. They stay. They listen. And in doing so, they discover an uncomfortable truth. Most of their suffering came not from being alone, but from trying not to be. Solitude, is not an escape from the world. It's a re-entry into selfhood. It is where identities stop being borrowed and start being built. It is where one becomes the author rather than the echo. In this space, the intelligent begin to differentiate between loneliness and expansion. Loneliness says, I am missing something. Solitude says, I am remembering something. What is remembered? Their own rhythm, their own mind, their own worth. And once they've experienced this kind of solitude, they can never go back to diluted company. They become allergic to fake intimacy. They stop pretending that proximity equals connection. Solitude becomes not just a refuge, but a filter. It sifts out the noise, the shallow, the performative. What's left is rare, peace. And peace is something society fears. Because a peaceful person is harder to control. 4. Every group has a price of admission. It may not be spoken, but it is understood. To belong, you must become like. You must compromise, edit, restrain. And the intelligent notice something sinister. The more you want to belong, the more you must betray yourself. So they begin asking a dangerous question. Is it worth it? Belonging comes with conformity. You must absorb the group's language, mimic its values, and hide your edges. The intelligent, by their nature, struggle to do this. They are not easily molded. They ask too many questions, feel too deeply, see too clearly. They notice how opinions are recycled and how individuality is punished. They sense that most belonging is conditional, based on agreement, not acceptance. And they would rather be true alone than false together. They are not antisocial. They are anti-pretending. When social inclusion demands self-reduction, the intelligent step away. Not because they cannot adapt, but because they refuse to shrink. Their solitude is not failure, it is preservation. To belong to everyone is to belong to no one. So the intelligent choose carefully, and often that means choosing no one at all. What we call belonging is often just emotional blackmail wrapped in smiles. The group demands agreement, not alignment, but submission. It doesn't ask who you are, it tells you who to be. And if you refuse, you are excluded, not for being wrong, but for being unwilling to conform. The intelligent person sensitive to this coercion withdraws not because they lack the skill to belong, but because they see the cost too clearly. They ask, Why should I pay with my authenticity just to sit at your table? They start to see how social structures reward sameness and punish originality. They recognize the currency of social survival, compromise, consensus, and the slow erosion of self. But the intelligent don't want to survive socially. They want to live fully. They'd rather walk alone with integrity than stand with the crowd in hypocrisy. This is not arrogance, it's clarity. The intelligent understand that conditional belonging is not love, it's manipulation. And when they realize that most people don't want connection but conformity, they stop offering themselves for validation. They prefer to build a life around a few genuine connections than hundreds of shallow ones. Belonging to them is not about finding a place in the world, it's about creating one that doesn't require betrayal to enter. And when they do meet others like themselves, something profound happens. No need for pretense, no social negotiations, just recognition. That's the kind of belonging that doesn't cost your soul. 5. The most radical thing an intelligent person can do is say nothing. In a culture of performative participation, silence is defiance. It says, I don't agree, I don't consent. I see through it. This silence is not weakness. It is strength restrained. It is observation over reaction. It is choosing to witness rather than be consumed. The intelligent revolt not with violence, but with disengagement. They walk out of conversations that insult their intelligence. They leave rooms where substance is unwelcome. They do not correct every lie or challenge every illusion. They simply refuse to participate in it, and this terrifies others. Because silence cannot be argued with, it cannot be manipulated. It offers no handle to pull, no button to press. It creates space, space that forces reflection. In that space, others begin to sense their own emptiness. The intelligent know this. They wield silence like a scalpel. Not to harm, but to expose. Not to distance themselves, but to preserve what? T is real. Their quiet is not surrender, it is strategy. In a world where everyone is talking, choosing not to speak becomes a form of rebellion. Silence is the intelligent person's shield. It is also their scalpel. It cuts through illusion, not with noise, but with absence. This silence isn't just personal, it's philosophical. It rejects the collective hysteria, the unspoken desperation to always be seen, always be heard. The intelligent person realizes attention isn't the goal. Authenticity is. They speak only when they have something to say, not just because there's a pause to fill. And because they don't clamor for attention, their words, when they do come, carry unusual weight. People lean in, not because the intelligent shouted, but because they waited. This is how influence works in reverse. The less they chase it, the more it finds them. They also understand that confrontation is rarely useful. The truly intelligent rarely argue, not because they can't win, but because I see what others cannot. That most debates are performances, not inquiries. So instead, they step back. Let the noise pass. Let the ego burn itself out. They know that silence is not absence. It is presence without performance. And that is something few can maintain. In a world addicted to spectacle, silence is spiritual. Their revolt is not explosive, it is erosive. It doesn't demand attention. It reclaims attention, quietly, relentlessly, with purpose. And when the dust settles, they are T, he only ones still standing, untouched, unbought, unbroken. 6. Freedom is not doing what you want. It's knowing that you don't need permission to do it. The intelligent person begins to taste this when they stop seeking social validation. They no longer ask, is this okay? Instead, they ask, is this true? Yeah, they stop auditioning for inclusion. They stop performing for approval. And in that moment, something shifts. They become internally governed. The crowd loses its grip. This kind of freedom is quiet but powerful. It is not loud rebellion, but quiet refusal. It does not scream, I don't care. It simply does not care. The intelligent learn that the greatest act of rebellion is not rage, it is indifference. To not need what the world demands you chase, to live as if applause never mattered. And you live like this, the world reacts. Because nothing disturbs others more than someone who doesn't need them. The intelligent don't hate others. They just no longer need their permission to be themselves. And that's the beginning of real liberation. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't come with flags or slogans. True freedom happens invisibly, when you no longer wait for permission to be yourself. And for the intelligent, this moment is seismic. It's not an act of rebellion. It's a shift in gravy. They stop living life as an apology. They stop shrinking themselves in conversations. They stop softening their truths. They stop editing their identity to be palatable. And when this internal permission is granted, something else dies: the fear of disapproval. The intelligent person doesn't need to be told they are enough. They know it, not from ego, but from essence. They've met themselves in solitude. They've survived rejection without collapsing. They've lived without applause and disc. Overt, they still exist. This inner stability becomes a superpower. They no longer need to be invited to feel valuable. They no longer need to be celebrated to feel worthy. And when you stop needing, you start choosing. You don't accept every interaction, you curate. You don't chase every opportunity, you align. This is how quiet freedom feels, like peace with your own mind, like breathing in a room where you don't have to pretend, like saying no without explanation, like being seen but not needing to be understood. And the world, accustomed to your compliance, won't like it. But the price of freedom is always misunderstanding. The reward, however, is living unshackled. 7. Here lies the paradox. The more you let go of the need to be seen, the more visible you become. The less you speak, the more people want to know what you think. The more you withdraw, the more your presence is felt. The intelligent do not seek influence, but they often end up with it. Not because they chase attention, but because they move differently. In a world addicted to noise, stillness becomes magnetic. They live without trying to impress. They create without asking for applause. And that authenticity is rare enough to become irresistible. People follow them not because they demand it, but because they embody something we've lost: the courage to be oneself. This is the ultimate paradox of intelligence. The refusal to conform creates something stronger than belonging: reverence. And so the intelligent may walk alone, but they do not walk unnoticed. Their silence becomes legend, their solitude becomes signal, and their very existence becomes a quiet revolution against a world that confuses popularity with truth. There is a strange irony in truth. The less you care about being followed, the more you lead. The less you crave attention, the more magnetic you become. And this is where the intelligent person lives, in the paradox. They are not interested in building empires, but they build influence anyway. Why? Because people are starving for authenticity. And authenticity is now rare enough to be mistaken for charisma. But the intelligent do not posture. They don't build personal brands. They build personal philosophies. They don't strive to be unique. They simply refuse to be imitations. The paradox deepens. The more they detach from trends, the more timeless they become. They speak quietly and are heard loudly. They walk slowly but move ahead. They stand apart yet become a center of gravity. And most beautifully, they do not seek to change the world. They simply refuse to let the world change them. And in doing so, they change everything. The world misunderstands this kind of presence. It calls them loners, cold, distant. But those are words used by people who only understand connection as performance. The intelligent know that real connection happens in depth, not noise. In solitude, not spectacle. In silence, not ceremony. And so they walk on, not because they've rejected society, but because they've found something deeper, a place beyond belonging, a place where the soul no longer has to bend to be loved. That is the final paradox. When you stop seeking the world's love, it begins to respect you. In the end, intelligence doesn't demand isolation, it demands honesty. The honest recognition that some paths can only be walked alone, that some minds will always drift away from the crowd, not out of contempt but out of necessity. To live truthfully in a world designed for appearances is not a rebellion, it's a revelation. And once you've seen through the farce, you cannot unsee it. The noise becomes unbearable, the rituals absurd, the hunger for belonging, a cost too high. You stop seeking. Applause not because you don't care, but because you've outgrown the need for it. Silence becomes not just a refuge, but a mirror where your real self finally speaks. So no, you're not lost, you're not aloof. You are simply no longer willing to betray yourself to feel accepted. And in that terrifying, magnificent realization lies a different kind of power. A power born not from validation, but from vision. Those who walk this path may walk it alone, but they never walk it in vain.